They've done studies,
is one of the most insanely
60% of the
idiotic
time.
things I've ever heard.
Let's talk about something important.
A, B, and C.
A always. What caused all this? Woo!
Good Scooter on the phone, you bird brain.
What do you do, backflips? You jump up there in a silly suit? What do you do?
You go BAM! I want you to play that.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Fast Freddie Rocks Youngstown. I'm here with Joe Danier. We're in the Youngstown studio in downtown Youngstown, the state-of-the-art Youngstown studio in beautiful downtown Youngstown, Ohio. Coming up tomorrow, man, we got the big Christmas tree lighting and the Santa parade.
Yes.
I'm going to be in it in the Y103 car. Look for me. So I love a parade. But I'll tell you what, downtown Youngstown is going to be jamming tomorrow.
Heck yeah.
I hear all the restaurants and everything are getting a lot of reservations, and it should be a good time. Got the tree lighting coming up, and they have like the flea market set up downtown tomorrow. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
And there is a lot of road closures down here, so get there early to get a spot.
Yes.
It's probably going to be a new pathway that they have to take.
Right. When are they going to have these roads finished here in downtown Youngstown? It is a mess. It really is a mess. Because I was looking at this road's closed, that road's closed, and I'm thinking, okay, where's the parade going to go?
Yeah.
But I guess it starts and ends at the Covelli Center.
It's like that snake game where it just goes around one block and the tail and the head is like
yeah, almost touching. Yes. I'll tell you what, though, downtown Youngstown is a great place for a parade. It really is.
Absolutely.
And when you line up around the buildings and everything, and you got that great backdrop, and I see they have the whatever it's called now, the home savings clock. They got it in red and green,
nice.
And everything's all lit up, and it's going to be a great time. So if you're looking for something to do tomorrow, I think the parade starts at 5:30, and then they light the Christmas tree when the parade is over. It is going to be a great time. So come on down and join us, man.
Absolutely.
Downtown Youngstown is jamming. We got a lot of great businesses down here to support. So come on down. And then on Saturday, they have the 11th annual Santa Shuffle. And this is a bar crawl that they have in downtown Youngstown. They've been doing it for 11 years now. Kelly Morocco and the Hills and Wheels girls do a great job on this. I think Harry George is a part of it. And they just do a great job on this. A lot of fun. And it starts at 10 in the morning. And it's going to be the bars include the Draft House, Avalon Downtown. What great pizza, man, from the Avalon. Love it. Gringo's, the Mocha House, V2 Wine Bar, Whistle and Keg. Now, have you ever been to Whistle and Keg?
Yeah, that place is awesome, man.
They have one in Columbus. I went down to that Joe Walsh Veterans Anniversary, Veterans Benefit Show a couple of weeks ago, and they have a Whistle and Keg right there in front of the Nationwide Arena. The only thing about that place is you spend a lot of money there, because the mindset is, at least for me, is they have all these. Here's how it works if you've never been there. They don't have a bartender. Okay, and everything's computerized, which that's probably why you love it. You probably walk in there and go, wow, this is really great.
Listen, I'm 5'0". When I go up to a bar, nobody serves me. So the computer at least pays attention to me.
So you walk in and they give you a bracelet, and I guess it has a computer chip in it. So they give you this bracelet, and you put this bracelet on, and they take your credit card, and you go to these different taps. They have this wall of taps, and they have some guy there that gives you a cup. And then, you just pick whatever kind of beers you want. Of course they have, Miller, but everybody goes there for the different things,
yes.
For the different craft beers. And so then you pour your own, and it keeps track of it by the ounce. And so, some of these beers are like 50 cents an ounce or like that, And so you go down there and you put your little wristband under each tap, and then it'll keep track, and you see like you're filling up a gas tank,
right?
And, you watch it go. But the thing about that is because in the back of your mind, you're thinking you're at Burger King or someplace, and you can just go up there and get as many refills as you want. That's how I look at it, And all of a sudden you're sitting there going, oh man, I'm about $40 in here,
Right. And they got wines on tap too. I love the fact that I can sample and I don't have to get a full glass of something I'm not sure of.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good way to look at it. Maybe get a little sip here,
like
a little
it,
sip
right.
there. But with me, I can't do a little sip. If I'm going to try it, I'm filling the glass up. But so that's one of the stops down in the Santa Shuffle. What else? Build your own breakfast. O'Donnell's, Susie's Dogs and Drafts, and West 34th. And what you do is you go bar to bar, and they have some big raffles. They got some great prizes going on, and they raise money for charity. And of course, the businesses do good too as well.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for something to do Saturday, stay in downtown Youngstown. Sleep in your car. Sleep in your car out here in front of the Youngstown studio.
Bad idea. Don't follow that.
Wait. Sleep in your car in downtown Youngstown, and then you'll be up bright and early for the Santa Shuffle, and you can just pick up where you
Get
left
your
off.
scrambled eggs and go.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun. And then Sunday, I'm going to be out at the Lake Milton. Is it the American Legion or the VFW? I can never remember. I'm pretty sure it's the American Legion in Lake Milton. And they have a Toys for Tots thing going on all day on Sunday, and a lot of bands and basket raffles and everything. And that's always a good party. I go out there every year. I'm not sure who the bands are this year. I know Gary Markowski usually plays out there and a bunch of other people, but it's always a great time. So if you're in the Lake Milton area, you know what? Let me look that up while we're talking here. It's the
And while you're looking at that up, comment from the chat. Suzanne says, "Hi, Freddie. Happy birthday." So
Yeah.
Wishing you happy birthday.
Yes, it is. Hey, and Dr. Sue checking in. Thank you. She's going to raise her glass of Blanton's for us. And what do we have? You know what?
We have some Bullet.
Okay, we're going to go with Bullet, Dr. Sue.
So
Here you go.
birthday
Salute.
boy.
Happy birthday. Nostrovia. You know what? Hold it.
Oh.
Let's do the Ukrainian toast.
Okay.
This is
Teach me something.
okay. So when I'll go Budmo, and you go hey, and I'll go Budmo, and you go hey, and I'll go Budmo, and you go hey, and then we drink.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
this
trying to
is
bump
this is the Ukrainian toast. No,
All right.
it's very easy. I mean,
Okay.
everybody could get this. Budmo,
Hey,
Budmo,
hey,
Budmo.
hey.
That's the way you do
That's
it.
it right there.
That's a good one. And I know we'll be doing that. Our family will be doing that, coming up here at Christmas. Oh boy, that's
that was
good. Yeah, that is.
I'm telling you, that pairing with coffee and bourbon is amazing.
It really is. It really, I like, I say this every time I'm on the show. I do like mixing alcohol and coffee.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's really good. Two of the things I like the most. Except, man, I was at Dunkin' Donuts today. Boy, they jacked the prices up a
Did
little
they?
bit. Yeah. Almost $5 for like a cup of coffee that I get.
Ooh. Is it like a sweet coffee? Like a
No, I get
dessert
I get an iced coffee with a couple of shots of French vanilla, skim milk, and of course the the turbo shot. I need the turbo
no
shot.
doubt.
And so
So
yeah.
all winter you do the iced coffee too? Do you?
You know
switch to
what?
hot?
I hate to say it, but at some point I might switch over to the Keurig and drink some hot coffee and save some money.
Like $5 a cup? Yeah.
I was talking to some guy today, and he's sitting there telling me, yeah, I was at the casino the other day and I bet all this money and I got my ass handed to me and this and that, and he's going on. And then I start talking about Dunkin' Donuts and he's like, $5 for a cup of coffee. I would never pay that. I'm glad. I'm like, dude, you just told me you just spent $500 at the casino and you're worried about $5 for a cup of coffee.
Priorities.
I think I'll stick with, I'm not a big gambler. I'm very unlucky at gambling, although I should have bet this weekend. I had the strongest hunch that Cleveland was going to win, that Michigan was going to win, and that the Steelers were going to win. To me, in my brain, it was like a lock. And I thought for sure that those three teams were going to win, but I didn't bet. But then
those would have been good odds too.
Yeah, if I would have bet, they wouldn't have won. That's how that works.
Right?
If I would have bet, it wouldn't have turned out that
Right.
way. But you know what? I won Yeah, legal sports betting comes to Ohio first of the year.
Oh yeah.
You know what's crazy? I look at marijuana and I look at betting. And remember, those were two of the biggest things that so many people went to jail for. You know, when you look back in Youngstown, the whole mob wars and stuff, a lot of it was centered around illegal gambling.
100%.
And back then, I mean, people were getting killed because of who was going to control the illegal gambling. And now all of a sudden, now the state finally, after all these years, found out, hey, we can make money on this. Now it's not bad anymore.
Right.
You know, it's like,
right.
it's not bad. No, this is good. This is good. But the thing that makes me wonder about that is you see all these betting services and everything that are popping up here and there, you know, all these apps and everything that are coming up and all this different things you could bet on and the prop bets and the money line and the spreads and this and that. You know, before, pro sports wanted to distance themselves as far away from gambling as possible. You know, there was that time when, you know, and even like with Pete Rose,
Right.
but there was this time when it was like gambling and sports shall never meet.
Yep.
Now you have the official sports book of the NFL and you watch these games and it's all sports books and gambling. And all of a sudden now it's like, okay, so you wonder, are some of these games fixed? Because, you know, there's people now that have a lot of money rolling on this. But I always thought that, you know, it was kind of hypocritical. Same with weed, you know. Okay, we're going to put all these people in jail and all these people that got busted for weed and people that maybe got kicked out of college, had a black mark on their record. You know, we were selling weed. I was in college, not me, but people, you know, the person was in college. They're selling weed. They get busted. Now their whole life is screwed because they got this conviction on their record and they're a drug dealer. And, you know, now all of a sudden, now the state finds out that they can make money on it. It's like, especially in places like Michigan, it's like, come on in,
That's
you
right.
know?
You can buy it at the Shell gas
Yeah,
station.
you know, they got these dispensaries there and people are lined up around the place.
Yep.
You know, every day people are lined up and now all of a sudden, oh, it's good. You know, there's nothing wrong with that.
No.
And then you think of all the people and also people got killed in drug deals and bigger drug dealers and all that kind of stuff. And people whose,
cartels.
but people whose lives were ruined, maybe even just selling weed here and there, you know, and they get busted and then they get that on their record. But now it's like, that's why, you know, not to get political, but I saw where Biden wanted to expunge those records of people that were convicted, which I think is a good idea. You know, I mean, yeah. Hey, and then I see Colorado now is legalizing mushrooms.
Oh yeah, this is gonna get good. You want the next plane of innovation is coming because of mushrooms.
Yep. So they had that. I saw that on the news today. But yeah, it's I see. You know what? I won gambling in Youngstown. Youngstown has always though been a gambling town. People in Youngstown love to gamble. We always have. It's in our DNA. Back in the day when they had the bug, you know, that's why they put the stock market results on the front page of the Vindicator, because that's how the bookies figured what they called the bug or the number. It was like the last 3 digits of the Dow Jones closing index. So that's how they figured out. And that's why the Vindicator, tongue in cheek, always had that stock report on the front page, because what they were really saying was, you know,
There we go.
and everybody was betting numbers in every little shop and every little grocery store and every little bar. And these guys used to run the numbers and this and that. And the mob was taking all the money and they were, but yeah, so then the state started with the lotto and, you know, but yeah, my getting back to the ding, getting back to the whole point of this story. I remember I hit my first football pool when I was about 5 years old. And that shows you how engrossed we are in gambling in Youngstown, you know, and it always has been. It's just in our DNA, you know, bingo games. I don't care what it is, pool tabs, bingo, you name it. We love it, you know? And I can remember I was a little kid and my cousin just handed me a football pool. I was about 5, 6 years old. He says, yeah, mark some of these off. Marked them all off. and I hit for like $200.
Whoa.
And I remember I had a bag of $1 bills. And back in the day, we used to get this, they used to have this Popeye cereal. And that was like for the, low income people, because it came in a big plastic bag and it was puff wheat and puff rice. And I remember I had that Popeye cereal bag full of $1 bills. Boy, did I think I was something.
Heck yeah.
And I don't think I've hit another one since then.
No, it's not that lucky. Huh?
No, I think the last time I hit in gambling, so to speak, and it wasn't even really gambling, I won the 50-50 one year at the Howland Niles football game. And that thing was huge. It was like, I think I won $800. I walked out there with $800. And it was kind of funny because I think the tickets were like, to get in, me and my mom went, and I think the tickets were like, came up to $9. I think they were $4.50 a piece. So I gave them a 10 and they gave me $1 back. And the lady was standing there at the 50. I usually buy 50-50s though. I just happened to have that dollar and give me one, and I won.
Whoa.
Okay. So now, they announce the number. And so I have to walk all the way up to the press box to get the money. And, and hey, congratulations going out to Fast Freddie, and I'm like, oh geez, and then it was just like,
But you had a lot of friends on the way out of there. Like,
well, you know what though? I was worried because I parked way down by the Giant Eagle, and here I am with this lunch bag full of money, and everybody knows that I won.
right.
And me and my mom are walking down there, and I said, just keep walking. I said, let's walk as fast as we can to get down to the car because, so my one buddy that's in a motorcycle club, his philosophy, Big Herb's philosophy is, why should I buy a 50-50 ticket when I got a tire iron in the parking lot? And that is always stuck in the back of my mind.
Right.
You don't know who's out there.
The tire iron says you won.
Yeah. Here's my ticket. Hey, let's see. Kenny Simpson says, hi, happy birthday. Thanks, Ken. Dave Price, thank you. Happy birthday to me. It's my birthday. It's my birthday. So that's what was going on there as far as the gambling. So this week, I don't want to get too much into it because once again, this is like a touchy subject. Sean Watson comes back and plays for the Browns. And, I think that's going to divide the fan base,
Right. What do you think? You think he's going to come out swinging?
You know what? I think it's going to be hard to play after 2 years. I think when you play in the NFL and you're away for 2 years, you're going to be rusty. I think because the game is so fast, and if you're not used to that pace day in, day out, year in, year out, I think it might be hard to adjust. I think it might be hard to adjust to that. And my philosophy is too, sometimes I think when these teams have a bye week, they lose a little.
Right.
I think when the Browns came off of that win before the bye week, I think they should have played the next week because I think they had it going.
Yep.
And I think sometimes, in my opinion, I think sometimes the bye week throws you off, or even in the playoffs, when you get that week off, does it really help? Because I think it knocks you out of your routine. I think your routine has to be so precise and so regimented that if you get out of it even for a week, it takes something away.
So do you think they should just allow Jacoby to keep playing and give him till next year to
no, because now he's even farther away. You got to get it rolling. But
yeah.
and it's just such a controversial thing because there's some people that think he's not guilty, and then there's some people out there that think what he did is accused of doing is so disgusting that it bothers them that that this is what went down. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Is he going to be like a Michael Vick, and this is going to follow him everywhere he goes? And it's going to be interesting to see how the fans respond to him. It's going to be interesting to see, if he shows up at the press conference. I don't think he is, because he was supposed to address the press at this, the gathering that they do, and he didn't show up, and they said, well, he's not going to be talking. And I think it's going to be a big distraction for the team for a long time.
Yeah.
and to give that guy, and even if we win the Super Bowl and stuff, it's still going to be a little greasy. There's still that.
But, I mean, there was others. There's Ben Roethlisberger. There was Ray Rice. There was Michael Vick.
I mean, well, you look at Ray Rice. I mean, I think he's kind of greasy. Yep. He was involved in a murder, for crying out loud.
Yep.
And Ben, it was like only one person. You hate to say that, one person. But, with me, I think, though, it's a little hard to get a conspiracy with that many people. You know what I mean? I think it's a little difficult sometimes is it this many people in on the thing, because you would really have to have your story airtight to make it like everybody has the same story. Right. And you got 20 people from 20 different places and they all have the same story. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't even want to get in on that, but
moving on.
I do have a money-making idea, and I was even going to have you partner with me on this.
Do it.
Well, you know what though, we really can't because of what it is, because how it would look. I wanted to get like the Deshaun Watson to go with the terrible towel. And call it the tugging towel. And remember, they said he brought his own little special small towel. So we have something a little bit bigger than a washcloth, and we just have tugging towel or the rubbing rag with his number on there. And I'll tell you, we would sell a lot, but I think the backlash would be, people would take that we're making fun of a serious situation.
Yeah, we'd have to do it through a proxy.
That's right, underground. Yes, something that we're like 3 steps away from.
Yes. But so first step is don't talk about it on a radio show.
Yeah. You know what? I blew it. I blew it. Yeah, there it goes. Somebody else out there, you can jump in and take my idea.
And it's totally not us who's doing it.
And make some money on it. But I was thinking that, and I'm like, okay, if we do this low key through somebody else, or we set it up so they really don't know who's in charge of this whole thing, because you would
DL.
Yep. But now I blew it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah,
that
thank
was
you.
Good one.
You shouldn't have
the golden idea of this century, and you blew it.
An extra small, and then you can have like a stain on it. I had this all figured out, and when I thought about it, I was doing backflips because I thought, man, do I have an idea here? But then, like I say, some people would take that.
Think about it. There could be a game in the future where everybody in the stadium is taking their tug-it towels and going, I couldn't imagine
the rubbing rag.
The rubbing rag. And it was your idea.
60,000 people waving the rubbing rag. And you know who would buy those? Every opposing team would buy that. Fans of every opposing team. Everybody in Pittsburgh would buy that.
Yes.
Getting ready for the game, and they would all want to be waving the rubbing rag.
That's
the tugging towel.
Amazing, man.
You didn't hear that.
Nope.
Can we edit this? Do we have a delay button here or something?
I dumped it.
This didn't even happen. Hey, there we go. I got to say hi to my friend Brenda. Hi, Brenda. Brenda says, I'm looking great today. You better, I didn't even take a shower today. I was cooking pierogies all day and stuff. I didn't even know if I was going to make it down. That's why I didn't book a guest, because I wasn't sure. And then,
well, I missed you. We had a couple weeks off.
Yeah. And I just wanted to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
We haven't been around for a while, but
how was your Thanksgiving, by the way?
Quiet.
Okay.
Quiet. Nothing to it. Although the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I was at the Ice House. We had a nice party out there. And then the Friday after Thanksgiving, we were at the Royal Oaks. We had a crazy time there. And then Saturday, I was at the Ohio State game at the Ice House.
Oh, were you? Nice.
Yeah. And then Sunday, I forget what I did Sunday.
When you were at the Oaks, did you see Viking? I mean, was that one?
You know what? Vike doesn't come out like he used to. Viking Jim is not the Vike of old.
What the heck?
Yeah, no, he's not the Vike of old.
A little disappointed.
Yeah, no, he's not what he used to be. Although he did go to see the Vikes and the Dallas Cowboys, and he had a blast up there.
Nice.
It was like a pilgrimage for him, and he had a great time. But then when he started telling me his stories, whenever you go to a sporting event with your kids, we all have like these memories of something like crazy that happened there, or just something like a goofy guy that was sitting next to you cheering, or some guy passes out, or you're on the bus or the train going to the game, or you're at a bar and there's this guy that's just yelling out stuff or whatever.
Every time.
And Mike was telling me about some of his adventures, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, somewhere, some dad and his kid to the 20 years from now will be going, hey, Dad, remember we were at the Vikings game and there was that one guy that was on
bearded
the
guy?
Yeah, that crazy bearded guy. What was that he was chanting? What was that he was saying again? And I'm just picturing that in my mind. I'm like, the one time me and Vike go to an Indians game, and we lucked out, through the radio station or something, and we got some really good seats. And I think we were in the Lexus Club and all this. And Vike was out there yelling and heckling some of the craziest things. And these kids that were sitting next to us with their parents, they look like they just come from the country club or whatever. And they're all sitting there in the Lexus Club area. And Vike is just yelling. Like, he was pretty funny, though. He was funny. And these kids are just like looking at him with this like look on their face. And I'm going to go, and I'm thinking, you know what? 20 years from now, these kids will definitely remember this goofy guy that was yelling whatever he was yelling.
Yep.
know,
I'll tell you, Hogs was the best heckler.
Oh yeah, the Hogs. Yeah, the Hogs was smack him in the mouth, Vic. Smack him in the mouth. The Hogs is a character to begin with, and then he was like the voodoo man at the Scrappers games for a while, and he had this costume and everything.
Yeah, there's a little story about that. We went to a game where he was there, and I took my what was girlfriend, now wife. And that is how I got to introduce my cousin Mike to my wife, is when he was the voodoo man.
You know what, though? I thought that the Scrappers missed the boat on the voodoo man.
Yes.
I think the voodoo man made them a little nervous, but he could have been like the shit, They
made him famous, put him on their social. That would have been amazing.
They did not embrace him. They were afraid of the voodoo man. But I mean, all those guys that were coming up at that time that played for the Scrappers, like Victor Martinez loved the voodoo man. There's a few other players I'm trying to think who was on that team at the time that went on. And, I love the Scrappers, and I'm just a little bummed that they lost their Indians affiliate. Yeah. Because that really made it great, because there were so many Indians. You would see them there, and then like maybe in 3 years, they're at the big game. And then if guys like Michael Brantley or something needed to rehab, they would come to the Scrappers field, and you get a chance to see those guys up close. And it was not that the players are bad, not that it's still not fun, but that connection with the Indians really went a long way, for people that, now my son, he worked there for, both of my sons worked at the Scrappers. And when my one son was the assistant clubhouse manager, he knew all those guys, Plesac and Frankie Mejia and Tristan McKenzie. And, he knows them all, and it was just cool that, all these guys were at the thing. I remember one time Mejia, he didn't like what they were having at the game. I think this is when my son was still a bat boy. He started out as a bat boy. Then, he worked on the grounds crew, and also then he was the assistant clubhouse manager. Him and his buddy Murph. Murph was the clubhouse manager. He was the assistant. And I'll tell you, those guys had a good time working there. But so Mejia, he didn't like what they were having. And, he's like,
And we're back.
Okay. Yeah, man. Boy, a little glitch there at the state-of-the-art Youngstown studios here in
The
downtown
hamster
Youngstown.
stopped running for a minute.
All right, let's see. So I had my espresso. We had our shot of bullet for the for my birthday. And now we are moving on to the Samuel Adams limited edition holiday porter, dark and robust. That's what I like. I'll tell you, I bought one of these sample packs. You know, if you really, it was some good tasting beer, something a little different. And if you want like the craft beer experience, but you don't really want to go over the deep end, it's like kind of a craft beer, but it's kind of commercial.
Okay.
Samuel
I've never
Adams.
had that one, so let's get your review on it.
I can tell you what it says here. What does this say? A flavorful beer with a rich malt complexity and robust finish. Deep roasted malts complement the generous portions of traditional English ale hops and Bavarian noble hops to create an exceptional and delicious winter brew. Oh, this is going to taste good. I know it is, just by reading that and just because it's a holiday porter and it's dark and I like it. Very good.
Good
Very
follow
good.
up to bourbon. Good match.
Yeah. You know, one of these days we're going to have to do the show somewhere where we could smoke a cigar.
Yeah.
I'm not a big cigar smoker. And, you know, when I used to hang around with Cornell Bogdan a lot, you know, he was an aficionado of cigars, and he'd always have all different kind of great cigars. It'd open up like this briefcase, and it'd be like, whoa. And
So listen up real quick.
okay.
I know you probably didn't read this on Facebook yet, but I just announced that we're doing a conspiracy theory show
Okay.
at Cut and Toast, where we're going to be partying and talking conspiracy theories for a whole show. This would be perfect for us to go over. You're in?
Yeah.
So
yeah. What day?
Mark Glenn is one of the owners over there.
Hey, Mark. Okay. We just happen to be talking about cigars, and Mark's checking
Isn't
in.
that cool?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I'll come down.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Sadie, we're back. Yeah, everything was a little crazy here. You know, Joe didn't pay the electric bill. You know?
Things are tight here in Youngstown.
Yeah, really. So if you'd like to send us some money, that would be nice. That would be nice. So what kind of conspiracy theories? Where are we going with that?
We started off with UFO talk today.
Okay.
And we were kind of like pitching ideas.
Hey, you know what? Before we go any further,
Yeah.
what happened with your UFO thing? Did it pick up?
No,
Nope.
it almost felt like when I put it out to the internet,
Yeah.
that something caused it just to die. Like it got no traction.
Yeah.
no
you know, I
views.
saw it. Yeah. It was like nothing to it. And I that was something.
Yes.
That was definitely something. Now, out of everything out there that's going on, I think aliens are probably aliens and ghosts. I think are the two
Yep.
that are the most logical, and that I think that would make the most sense.
Absolutely.
You know,
There's so many accounts of it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
almost, can't be not true, if that makes any sense.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying.
So we floated aliens,
Okay.
the conspiracy, but no landing on the moon and flat Earth.
Nah, the
and-
moon is real. You know
and
the moon is real.
Bigfoot.
Come on, a computer guy like you.
Hey, it's
you
worth
know.
talking about though.
Yeah,
It's fun.
yeah, because there are people
JFK.
out there. You know, JFK, that's always a good one. Bigfoot to me is the least believable.
Okay.
You would have found Bigfoot by now. You would have found bones. You would have found something. You would have found one run over by a semi in the mountains somewhere, or somebody would have shot one at something at time thinking it was a bear or whatever. You know,
Okay.
to me, and I know I have a couple of friends that are really huge Bigfoot believers, and they might unfriend me right now because I'm disputing that. But I would say out of all of them out there, Bigfoot is probably the least believable.
Of all of our shows, the conspiracy theory, conspiracy theory shows are our most popular. They love conspiracy theories.
Really?
That's
Okay.
it. So that's
All
why
right.
we're going to do a little celebration and party and talk all kind of them.
Okay, that'd be fun. What day are you going to do that?
I haven't picked a date yet, so
okay.
we're going to invite 30 people over there, smoke some cigars, drink some
Okay.
bourbon, and talk conspiracy theories.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Maybe we'll get some, some of this fancy schmancy Sam Adams Although this is like commercial craft beers. You know?
There's
It's
some
like
people hating you for that more than
Yes.
Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah, drink some man. We got, you know what, right up the street there. Do you know that brewery right up there? You know what they got? And you're drinking that piss water, that shit. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Causing discontent.
When I go to those places, I like the dark beers, but I usually look at the board, and whatever's the highest alcohol content, that's how I pick it out. I look on there and I see something there that says 14% alcohol. I'm like,
Sold.
that sounds like the one I'm looking for. That's the one I want. Oh, okay. Yeah, I just had one. My sister's checking in. You need another shot, birthday boy. If you would have joined us earlier, you would have known that I had one. Tracy from the Hood. What's up, Tracy? It was good to see you at, where did I see Tracy? Royal Oaks? That could be. Yeah, Royal Oaks. We had a good time up there. You know, I'll be back on the 23rd, day before Christmas Eve. So it's a Friday. We'll do an after work party. You know, it seems now like after work parties and stuff are working better for bars. COVID really messed everything up. And I think it just changed it.
Right.
You know, it's almost like if you want to do something fun at a bar, you almost got to start at 5 o'clock because by 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, people are done.
Yeah.
People are done. It used to go out at 10 o'clock. And we talk about that all the time. Back in the day, you would go out at 10 o'clock and the place wouldn't start jumping until midnight. And then at 2:30, you're trying to push everybody out the door. And then you would go to Perkins or wherever you would go after that. And then you would, be there until 4 a.m. and then get up and go to work the next day. And now it's like, most of the time, if you're driving around after midnight, the only thing that's out there is cops.
Yep.
You know, it's just cops. Nobody's even out, you know, like they used to be. Yeah, that used to be the thing, man. Midnight, I'd go to places, start playing, or it'd be a band. 10 o'clock, nobody's in there. 11 o'clock, you're thinking in the back of your mind, okay, is this going to be a bust? Next thing you know, midnight, you can't fit another person in the place. And then, 2:30, come on, everybody out. You got to go. And at this time, they're all drunk. Oh, I'm not leaving. Busting glasses and getting in fights and stuff. Hey, Rama, what's up, man? Thank you for the birthday wishes. Rama, we're going to get on the show. I promise you. I should have called Rama to just come down today. But I didn't know I was going to do it. I wasn't 100% sure, and I don't want to book people. And Rama's been working on a lot of great music out there. Yeah, Luciano's or the Iron Skillet were the 2:30, 3 o'clock places. Yeah, you got that right, Jason. Those were popular. Perkins, Denny's. Remember when they had Sambo's? You don't remember Sambo's? You can't have Sambo's nowadays, believe me when I tell you. But but the reason they called it Sambo's was because of the guy's name was Sam, and that was like his nickname. But you can't go down that road today for that one. So, yeah, Rama, yeah, no problem. Hey, thanks, Jason, for the birthday wishes. Yeah, there you go. Splendid all night. That was another one on South Avenue, the Splendid. And that was one of those places in Youngstown. Everybody knew that they were serving liquor after 2:30. Everybody would be in there and, drinking, and, you go there for breakfast at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. They're serving you shots in
paper cups,
and coffee cups. Hi, Ashley. Thank you for the birthday wishes. Yeah, the Splendid. And then where we used to go on Market Street, Fred's. Okay, yeah. We used to call it the Low Life. What was it called? Fred's. I know it wasn't called the Low Life, but Fred's. We'd call it Fred's Low Life, and it was right there on the corner by Mickey's. That was another place that at 2:30 people would be waiting in line. And now it's just not like that. Things are not like they used to be. They're just not. Nothing is like it used to be. Yep. And COVID really put a damper on things as far as the bar scene. I mean, you want to talk about something that's really not like it used to be. Yeah, next to the Jam Bar. Yeah, Jason knows. Yeah, the New Life. Yeah, the New Life. Fred's New Life, but we always called it the Low Life, right next to the Jam Bar. Jam Bar was another crazy place. All those places there on that little corner of Market Street, you had the Jam Bar, and you had the Blue Note, and you had the Act 3. We used to have some hellacious nights out at the Act 3, man. That place, me, Casey Malone, Cornell Bogdan, we had some CD 106 nights out there that were just crazy, just insane. You know, we would do stupid human tricks. And I remember one day, I don't know if I should say who it is. I'll say it anyways. Like John Kennedy from the Royal Oaks, we go, okay, because that was big on Letterman. Stupid. Hey, thanks for the birthday wish, Lori. We used to do stupid human tricks because Letterman used to do that. That was a big feature on Letterman. So we would do, stupid human tricks. The one day, this one dude, that's the owner of a bar not too far from downtown Youngstown, comes up. He wasn't owner of a bar at the time. And he comes up and he just reaches in his pants and pulls out a big hand of butt hair and just throws it on the DJ table. Okay. So then the next thing, it was this guy. It was these two guys called Beer on Tap. And the one guy had something wrong with like a cleft palate or something wrong. And he would drink a beer and he would shoot it out of his nose and his buddy would drink it. Somehow the health department found out about that and says, hey, dudes, knock that off. Not cool. Another time, some dude decided he was going to stand on his head. Oh, okay. Jason, we will get to the Cleveland Indians party at the Boatyard in a minute. That is one of the classic biggest parties of all times that we have ever had. And it was crazy. And I'll get to that in a minute. So let me finish about, this other guy, he was going to stand on his head and drink a beer and he knocked like 3 mirrors or a neon light off the wall. Then we do, okay, the person with the biggest scar gets the next prize. So we got these people coming up and one guy had open heart surgery and somebody had a C-section and this guy had a knife wound and this guy's in an accident and they're almost fighting over who's bigger. And we got this big bunch of people on the dance floor just arguing over who has the biggest scar and we're trying to sort it out. Next thing you know, from the back of the bar, you see the crowd just part like the Red Sea, right? And everybody just moves apart. And all of a sudden, up walks this dude that had parachuted into electrical wires. Oh. He was a giant scar from head to toe, and some of them were still oozing. We are not worthy. We are not worthy. We gave him every prize we had. The concert tickets, the CDs, the t-shirt. We just showered him with prizes because it was not even a contest at that point.
Think of the timing though. That when he woke up this morning, he wasn't like, I'm going to win the biggest star contest.
Something good is going to come out of this accident that I parachuted into these electrical wires. And today was my day. Wow. And I mean, we just showered him with every prize we had. We just gave him it all. Beautiful. It was just like, and it stopped the near fist fight on the dance floor because these guys are like measuring and, hey, that's a knife scar. And it's like, I got that in the wreck. And then it comes up around and look, it just missed my dick. And, and all this stuff. Wow. And all this thing is going on. And then, we're sitting there, and there is this one girl in a mini skirt with no underwear. And she's just sitting there in the front row with her legs like spread open. And this is all like in one night at the Act 3. And this one guy was so drunk. I remember at the end of the night, they had these chairs around the bar that had those little coaster wheels on it. And I remember they just wheeled him out of the bar across the sidewalk and dumped him in the back seat of a car. Oh. And away he went, and then off we went to Fred's Low Life. And the next thing you know, I was on the air the next morning. Not the next morning, that morning, the following morning. You just drive from there, and it's like, a few hours later. Now, Jason brings up the Boatyard free beer during the Indians
Oh,
playoff
no.
game. 1995, the first time, the Cleveland Indians go to the World Series, and we have this party at the Boatyard on Belmont Avenue. We used to do Jimmy Buffett night out there on Wednesday nights, and the place used to be insanely packed, And so somehow the wires got crossed, and it was supposed to be like, okay, we're going to have a keg, and you could bring a cup and get a warm beer off the keg at the patio. And somehow the wires got crossed, and they thought it was free beer, anything. And they start just handing out beers to people. And people are taking 3 or 4 at a time. People are sitting there guzzling beers like water coolers. They got one in this hand. And then they start handing out these like test tube shots and stuff. And Chrissy Patrick comes in there, and she was kind of in charge. She's like, "What's going on here?" And she's trying to grab beers and stuff off of people. And they're just anybody wanted a beer. 4 of them at a time. They're just throwing beer everywhere until they were out, right? We left there. There was not a single place where you could put another empty beer bottle. And people were saying stuff like, "Dude, this is the craziest party I've ever seen." They go, "When we said free beer, we thought there was going to be a keg out there and we get a warm draft and we got to pour it ourselves. This is freaking awesome, dude. You guys are the best." The next day, we get a call at the radio station. "Hey, who's paying for all this beer?
Oh, no.
And the test tube shots? Who's paying for all this?" Like, what do you mean who's paying for this? And then, like we had that long run of Jimmy Buffett nights out there for many years. And then that was it. Then I think Jim Lowboy from Hot 101 was there instead of CD 106 the following week.
Man.
It was one of the greatest parties in the history of Youngstown bars. And people were standing there, and they had a beer in each coat pocket and a beer in each hand, and they were pounding. It was like, "We will never have another beer again. It's free."
And you guys are still talking about it 30 years later.
Oh, because it was that wild.
That is amazing.
It was that wild. It was that
Wow.
insane. And like I say, most people thought that, "Oh, okay, yeah, warm keg out there." It was just nuts. It was just completely nuts because it was free beer. People were just coming in. You couldn't fit another person in there. And like I say, people were drinking beers 4 at a time. They were just cracking them open and setting them on the bar, and people were just grabbing them. They weren't even looking what they were. Just give me 3 bottles, 4 bottles, 2 in each hand, pouring them on their heads and shit, and it was just like, it was, but you know what? It was because the Indians went to the World Series,
Right.
and it was worthy of that kind of party. I don't know how they ever figured out who ended up paying for that
Yeah.
beer, but like I say,
I'm assuming it wasn't you. Like, I'm assuming you got out of that one, right?
Oh yeah, Jason says, "I can't see you without thinking of that night." People that remember that night was like, it was crazy. It was one of the most insane, crazy parties that I'd ever seen in my life. There's you've never seen anything like it. The free beer. The Indians go to the World Series. Yeah, we were bullshitting. Hey, when we say free beer, we mean free beer.
That's it.
You know what? We're not going to give you that warm keg out on the patio,
The good
foaming
stuff.
over. Yeah. What's that? Oh, you want a Budweiser? Take 4 of them. Take 5. Yeah, guzzle those 4 and come back for 4 more. I remember Chrissy Patrick, though. Nard was there, and he was drinking these test tube shots. She's trying to grab him off because she's thinking, who's going to pay for this? Finally, like at about midnight, somebody had the idea of like, yeah, who's going to pay for this? I don't remember the radio station saying anything about this,
Mhm.
but it was a legendary party.
Yeah.
Legendary. Jay Bird checking in. What's up, Jay Bird? How you doing? How you doing? No, how you doing? But yeah, man, we had a blast at that one. The Boatyard was a good time. When I used to do Jimmy Buffett night up there on Wednesday nights for a couple of years, and boy, did we have fun. That place on Wednesdays was packed. The patio was great, and it was all Jimmy Buffett music and margaritas and stuff. And one of the things I remember about the Boatyard was that was kind of like Mickey Monis's hangout. When Farmore was going, and when they had the golf tournaments and stuff, he would have all the golfers down there. I think Casey Malone somehow offended Nancy Lopez somehow.
Shocker.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what happened, but there was some kind of incident with Nancy Lopez. And I remember one time, like later on, the owner of the boathouse was talking about how when Mickey Monis went to jail, his business fell off. And Mickey Monis's dad saw that letter to the editor or something, and he wrote back, like, how dare you blame my son that your business fell off, and tied him in. But the point he was making was not, it wasn't because of anything personal. It was because that was like Mickey Monis's hangout. And that's where he would hold court, and everybody from Farmore, if they had some kind of meeting, they would come down there. And if he was out on a night on the town, and he'd bring his posse and have 20 people, and that was kind of like his spot. Right. So when he wasn't saying, hey, because he was a crook and blah, 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 he just meant that, once he left, that really, because he was a big spender there. Right. And he loved the place, and, he liked to hold court there, and that's what happened. We're gonna do the lighting of the tree. I'm gonna be in the parade tomorrow, Jay Bird. We're gonna be down here for the lighting of the tree. We could have did a live stream from downtown tomorrow, but we didn't think about it. And plus that would be too much work.
Yes.
And it's cold. It's cold. I want to sit in the Y103 car and and
jam
wave
the tunes
and jamming tunes and waving. That's what I want to do. I don't want to go out in the cold tomorrow. It'll be bad.
Good idea.
Yeah. Next year. Yeah, we'll put that down. Bah humbug. Yeah. Right.
Hey, have you ever been to the Manicore Club up here?
You know what? In all the time I have been in Youngstown, Ohio, I have never been there. And my sister goes there. Cav, her boyfriend Cav, they go there.
Okay.
I have never been there.
We're doing a ghost hunt there on the 10th.
Oh, yeah?
And so I did the walkthrough the other night. That place is freaky. Like, it's a nice place. You can tell there's some history there.
Yeah.
But there's got some...
where else you got to go? The Kelvin Center right down the street. There's some, I've been in the basement of that place, and it was just like,
something's going on there.
Yeah. There are certain places, that something's going on there. But so that was some of the stuff. It's funny, though, that he brings up that Indians party, because that was probably, I would put that. Yeah, Jerry Dixie said, I bet Dominic loved that bar tab. Yeah, Jerry, I like I say, I don't know how they figured that out or whatever, because there wasn't a beer left in the place. And like I say, every space, the cigarette machine, window ledge, table, chair, everything. It was covered with empty beer bottles. I've never seen anything like it. Like it. Yeah, Jerry, man, we've had some good times with Jerry over the years at different auto events and things like that too. And but yeah, so I think I'm going to shave a little bit here now that No Shave November is over. Hopefully everybody took part in that. I'll tell you, when I trimmed this beard down, I thought, oh, what am I doing? And it's like, it's back already. You know who got a crazy beard right now? Viking Jim. I mean, he looks like a psycho. Yeah. I mean, if you've seen Viking Jim lately, and if you know who Viking Jim is, if you've seen him lately, you got to see that psycho's beard. I mean, he looks like Charlie Manson or some kind of like Rasputin or somebody like that. He just looks like a bearded terror. You look at him and you go, Mike, what the hell are you thinking? What are you thinking, kiddo? Okay. Where's he
I'm
at?
gonna find him.
Yeah, we got to find Vike in here somewhere. Yeah, follow Vike's Facebook page too. I think you'll he gets like weird though about, sometimes say, hey, why is this guy liking me on Facebook? Is he kind of weird? Or it's like, Vike, you're about as weird as they come. What are you worried about this dude for?
I need some pictures of him. He's got to have gone to like a football
Yeah,
game.
yeah, he's got at the Vikings game, he's got to be on there. I got to keep reminding him. I'm like, Vike, you're not a Viking. You broke your hip playing paintball with 12-year-olds. No, okay, yeah, that's there. There you go.
Okay.
I mean, you could think that there's critters living in there. I mean, do I have that much room to talk? Yeah, but I mean, look at that thing. I mean, that is just like, there's stuff living in there. I want to see him eat a bowl of clam chowder.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see him eat some barbecued ribs. No, I don't, because I think I would, but yeah, there's the Viking Jim Beard. It's taking on a life of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And so what else? Yeah, but the boatyard, that used to be. Hey, Dave, thank you. Happy birthday. Yeah, Jerry, you know what? Yeah, Dominic was a wild man, and he was a promoter like no other. I mean, he was like, to work for him as a radio station owner was something else, because he was balls out. He really was. He was something else. Tell Gary J stories. I ain't going down that road. But anyways, what else we got? You know what I wanted to talk about too? I saved some of these things. My buddy Mark Hackett has one of these Youngstown websites, and one of the things he does is he goes through like the Vindicator archives and pulls out some of the craziest ads. And he gets like the history of Youngstown just by looking at these old newspaper ads of, places that used to be, and restaurants and stores and banks and everything. And he does a lot of entertainment. And I was looking at some of the ones that he posted. Here's one from 1981, the Michael Stanley Band at Beagley Center. And that happened in 1981. And I think that's the show where Gary Markowski, the guitar player, fell off the stage and broke his ribs. A lot of entertainers have fallen off the stage. That's not something that's that uncommon,
right.
I'll tell you what's a good one. If you want to look this up at home on your own at some point in time, check out when Steven Tyler from Aerosmith fell off the stage in Sturgis. And what was crazy about that was he was singing Love in an Elevator. And when he got to the point of going down, and he falls off the stage, and you could hear people in the crowd thinking it was part of the show. And I go, oh, look how cool that is. Is that badass or what? Yeah, And then the dude ended up injured and got back on painkillers or something because of that. And but that's a good one. Here's one. This is from the Tomorrow Club, the Agora. The left end.
Let's talk about.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, okay.
It's on the wrong one. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. The left end 11-year concert spectacular, and it was recorded to be played live on the Wizard. And it says, I just love this ad. Okay, recorded live on the Wizard. Be on hand when the sensational left end introduces their new hot wired special effects and lights and sound. All new show, surprises. I'm going to start using this because I thought this was a good line in this ad. It says, don't miss this once in a lifetime spectacular. I think everything I do is now going to be, do not miss this once in a lifetime spectacular.
Everything is once in a lifetime.
Everything. And then there was another one there from Ponderosa Park with Johnny Cash and June Carter. I don't know what year that was from. And Conway Twitty was coming up the following week. And my buddy Mike Mad Dog Adams was the opening act for that one. We got to get Mad Dog on. He's a great guy, and we've had some good stories. He's the king of Put-in-Bay, man. Pat Daly was the king, and, Pat's retired now. And Mad Dog has been playing there for 40 years. Can you imagine that? That's your job. All summer you play at the Roundhouse at Put-in-Bay. And I'll tell you.
Every day of your life.
Yeah, or just the weekend, sometimes 3 days a week, and that was your job. And I mean, from what I understand, he made enough money there to pretty much cover his whole year, really, for those 3 days. But he's such a great entertainer and so funny. And I mean, he's had that place rocking for 40 years. And I love the guy. So we got to get him on soon. You know, like I say, I got to work on this a little more. Here's another one. The grand opening of Oasis Records and Tapes in the Boardman Plaza. And it has some of the albums that were on special that time. And some Bruce Springsteen, and I can't read some of this stuff, but you know, the OJs, Teddy Pendergrass was on there, you know. But I'll tell you, remember the days of the record stores, Oasis and National Record Mart?
Yep.
I got that. This is another person that I want to get on, but like I say, I'm slacking, I'm screwing up. My friend Brady worked there, and she was also like in charge of the CD and record department at Farmore. Speaking of Mickey Monas, and she has some great stories, and she's like the #1 rock chick in the world. And I got to get her on here. You know, I got to buckle down on this date. I don't know what year this was. Thursday, December 1st, the Oak Ridge Boys played at the Tomorrow Club. There we go. The Oak Ridge Boys. You know, actually, the Oak Ridge Boys are pretty good. I think that's the first country concert I ever seen. The Oak Ridge Boys. Then there was an ad in there for a place called The Playground on the uptown of Youngstown. In the uptown of Youngstown, there was a band there called Rumpelstiltskin. We used to go to the Playground all the time. That was one of our main hangouts, especially when you could drink at 18 and you'd get a fake ID when you were 16 and they didn't have any pictures on the ID. So if you were somewhere kind of close, you know, as long as you showed them something, it was usually, oh, okay, go in there. But the Playground was a lot of fun. And I think they used to have like $5 to get in and all the draft beer you could drink all night.
Really?
You know,
Dang.
they used to do that all the time back in the day. You know, all these places used to have like drinking with Lincoln, and they'd have, you know, bring in whatever size mug you want. And we'll fill it with draft beer. I've never been that big of a draft beer fan, you know, but that was kind of crazy. Here's an ad, Y103 Midnight Movies. And they had Jimi Hendrix played Berkeley. And that has to be probably from like 1974. They used to do midnight movies at the Foster Theater too, before it turned into a porno place.
Mhm.
And they would play all those old rock movies and things like Clockwork Orange and all these like art films. And then they just got into hardcore porn. You know, that is like the last, and I know they're trying to preserve it. It is like the last largest single screen movie theater in America. It's kind of a historic place. And, you know, then turned into a porn place. And I'll tell you what, so I'm told from what I've heard
Right,
from
not personal
people.
experience.
Yeah. You know, it was so dark in that place. If there was somebody sitting next to you, you probably couldn't see them, you know, and the floors were sticky. So I'm told.
That's so freaking gross.
One time with CD 106, we did an up all night at the Foster Theater. And we started at midnight and we went until 5 a.m. And our road dog at the time, Butcher, made this homemade movie, which was just so bizarre. It's unbelievable that we actually showed this in a movie theater. I wish a copy of it still existed, because now people would look at this thing and go, what the hell was that? I would get in, you know, I would explain the whole thing, but it's a little. So anyways, we did this thing at the Foster, and they, you know, they had this one thing in there called the Buddy Booth, and the Buddy Booth had little screens in it, you know, and you could go in there and watch a movie on the little screen, and then you could push the button and watch your buddy in the next booth watching their movie.
That is so creepy.
You know what, though? They have this museum of sex in New York City. And I was wondering what happened to the Buddy Booth. And that should be something
Absolutely.
that should be in the Museum of Sex, because it was just so, you know.
I hope they preserve crap like that.
Yeah. Somewhere I wish the Buddy Booth still existed. Yeah, Rocky Horror Picture Show at the midnight movies at the Foster. Somewhere I have a poster, and it had like the whole, like a month, and you know, it was like Pink Floyd at Pompeii and just all these rock movies at the time. I remember seeing the Beatles' Let It Be movie at that. But there were some crazy flicks there back then. And, and I still remember as a kid going to the Foster Theater for like one of my buddy's birthday parties in like first or second grade. And we went there and we watched cartoons and stuff and went back to his house and had cake and everything. But I still remember it to this day. And his name's Glenn Esposito. Whenever I see him, I said, I still remember that day we went to the Foster when it was a regular movie theater for your birthday. And it's just like, okay, how do I remember that? And I don't remember that I was supposed to do this commercial that's supposed to start 3 hours ago. Why is that? And that's another bit of thing I would like to comment on my birthday is, they say you're older and wiser. No, I'm older and dumber. Who said you get older and wiser? That's bullshit. You don't get any wiser the older you get. Let me tell you.
No imparting wisdom.
No, yeah. This was an interesting one too. This was Uriah Heep and Long John Baldry at the Yankee Lake Ballroom. I don't know when this was, but Long John Baldry was a guy, you got to read up about him. He influenced, he was a big influence on Elton John, and he's just an interesting character. And to think that he played at Yankee Lake with Uriah Heep back in the day. I saw that thing and I was like, that's pretty crazy. Then there was another ad for the Stylistics, and they were playing at the were they at the Reed's Arena? Now, see, there was 2 black clubs in Youngstown that were really big. There was, I think it was called the Cabaret over on Oak Hill, and then there was the Reed's Arena, which was also in Oak Hill, closer to downtown Youngstown. I would like to do, now this would be something to do. We always talk about the Tomorrow Club and stuff, but Reed's Arena would be an interesting documentary. But you don't see all these, I don't know who you would talk to, are there people still around that, hey man, were you at the Stylistics at Reed's Arena? I mean, that would have to be crazy. Or the Casablanca on Oak Hill. They used to have some big names in there. Yeah, here's one with Big Boogie D and his Madcaps. Big Boogie D, man. He was a blues man and soul player from Youngstown back in the day. But I would actually like to do a documentary on that, because all them guys used to play there. B.B. King and Bobby Blue Bland. I remember they always used to have posters on the telephone poles. Bobby Blue Bland at Reed's Arena. I would like to have one of those posters. Man, if somebody had a B.B. King at Reed's Arena poster, I don't know where, I wouldn't even know where to start, but I think that would be
the power of Facebook. Maybe someone will hook us up. They'll watch this.
Yeah.
They'll hook us up with maybe the original owners or somebody who now owns any of that stuff that still exists.
And then here's an interesting one too. It was an ad for a place called the Fun House on Lincoln Avenue by YSU. Now, I don't know what year this was. And the bands playing there were the MC5, and they also had Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels. Now, those had to be some crazy club shows. Now, I know everybody talks about the Green and some of those other places, but, the Fun House, you don't hear too many people talking about that. And when you see that they had the MC5 there and Mitch Ryder, that had to be a crazy show. I'd like to talk to somebody who was, Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels at some club on Lincoln Avenue in Youngstown over by YSU. That had to be wild. Oh, my favorite, another thing I have here in the phone. This had to be one of the funniest. Breaking news on Channel 27 this week. Breaking news. New local Dollar General opens. Wow. Oh, woo.
How did we luck out?
Yeah, a new Dollar General is open. I was like, okay, that I had to keep that and post that just because I was like, yeah, new Dollar General. You got to be kidding me,
They got to be careful. They're going to start riots about that. That's just amazing.
But yeah, those were a couple of the ads that I came across today on that Mark Hackett's site about the things long gone in Youngstown, I think it's called, or I grew up in Youngstown. But yeah, the Reed's Arena always kind of fascinated me because just because of the names that you used to see that played there. And you got to figure there's got to be some people out there that look at that place the way that, the white people look at, and not to be stereotyping or anything, but it was a soul club. That's what it was, man. The Stylistics and Bobby Blue Bland and B.B. King and James Brown and all those guys used to play there. So there's got to be some people that have stories like we have about the Tomorrow Club or seeing Journey, okay, well, what was it like B.B. King and, the Stylistics at the Casablanca on Oak Hill in Youngstown, or what was that like? That had to be crazy. I mean, there's got to be some people that have stories about that. Hey, thanks, Jerry. I'll be seeing you out there somewhere soon. Jerry Dixie, everybody. Thank you. Jerry Dixie in the house. Let's see. Tracy Randall, Fran and Larry's 30 and over. Yep. There we go. But, yeah, it's it would be interesting to get some stories about that, but you really don't hear too much about it. Obviously I don't know enough people that went there, but I should throw that out there somewhere and see if people have pictures. Have you ever seen them? Every once in a while, there's people that have a ton of pictures from Tomorrow Club of whoever, but taken with like a shitty camera back in the day, but they're pictures nonetheless. It's Kiss, or it's these guys, and there were some good photographers that took some pictures, but I would love to see like a picture of even the crowd at Reed's Arena, or at the Casablanca Club. What was it like, man? I would just love to see that. I would think that was really cool. And I remember when I was a kid, I would see even for the Casablanca up around there, over by Dewey and stuff, they would have those signs. That's how you advertise a lot of that stuff, on signs on telephone poles, and it would just be pretty crazy to see what that was all about, and get some stories about, I remember they were there, and you got to have the same stories that people had for the Tomorrow Club or all these other places. So that might be something that I want to look into. Hello, Leanne Binder in the house here, and we got to get Leanne back and Rama and everything. Like I say, I got to buckle down here and get serious with my guests and everything. So we'll get it rolling. So we got to get Leanne back. We got to get Rama back. I still got to get, JR from Michael Stanley's band, or not Michael Stanley, Gary Markowski's band, and talk about the Rainbow Tribe. And got to get Sonny from Saxville. I just ran into him over the weekend, and, everybody's ready to go. The Infidels had their big reunion show this past week. Unfortunately, I missed that. And I guess that was really good at the new Cedars. And, we got to get back to talking about the Cedars and places like that. I think it'd be pretty wild, to get that going. And yeah, we have, Hogs is due back on too. Hogs always got something going. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna try reeling Viking in too. That would be.
We could get Vike. We could get Vike. Vike is still weird, but he ain't the Vike of old.
Yeah.
I guess we got Vike, 2.2. 20.22 is I think what we got, the new Vike version.
We need an intervention. We need the
Nah, you see what happens to these people, but we definitely got to get Vike on, we just, we need that weirdness element in there, I got to bring people, weird people that you don't run into every day, and bring them into your living room, put them on the screen, and you could just sit there and scratch your head and go. And I got to get Harry George on too. I promised Harry George that I got to get him on, and he's another one that you'll be sitting there at the end of that show going, scratching your head like, well, what was that? Kind of like when, hey, Jason was talking about he loves Saxville. I think Saxville's playing at the Dash Inn soon, or maybe they just played there. But Sonny is a character. That's another one, man. We got to get Sonny. We got to get Timber from the 8 Balls. We gotta Tracy Randall. Yes, Harry George with a heart. Okay. You come and sit in here with him for an hour, Tracy, and then come and tell me about how that whole thing went down. I've traveled with the man. Hogs, it's sipping time. That's another thing too. I got to get down to Hogs and have sippy time. I never get a chance. He's always inviting me, and then I feel bad. you know, but people invite me to a lot of things, and it's just like, you know, it's like I don't know. It seems like I always got something going, but I never get anything accomplished. I don't know why that is.
I don't know. I see your schedule. You're one of the busiest people I know.
Yeah,
so.
but I'm just like spinning my wheels, you know.
No.
I mean, it's like I do this stuff, but I don't feel like I get anything done. You know, it's just like, you know, I don't know. You know what? I'm nursing this beer. There's something wrong with me. My holiday porter, and I'm just sitting here like, this thing's going to get warm. I better finish this.
They're talking about how people are chugging 4 beers at a time, and you're doing
Yeah.
pouncing you.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
far.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Look at that guy. What's he wasting that beer for? Yeah, busy doing nothing, Lynn. You're right. Jay says there's a medication for that. Thank you, Jay. And you would know if there's a medication for something. I'm sure Jay would know.
Our pharmacologist. Now that was a birthday sip right there. Look at that sip. Look at that sip. Ah, you go.
That's one thing I can still do
Chug it.
for my birthday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always one sip away. That's always been my motto. I'm always one sip away. One slug away. Yeah, see you when I see you. That sounds right, Hogs. You know, but yeah, I got to get Hogs back on. I like I say, I got to get off my ass. I got to make something happen here because we got too much good stuff going on. I got to get my buddy Norman Nardini on. You know, I feel like I'm just wasting time not getting these people on.
And we have the Vindies that are going to be performing over at the Penguin City in a couple of weeks. We can snag them when they're over here.
Oh yeah, man! I'll tell you what. I ran into the Vindies down at that Joe Walsh benefit concert. I don't know. Have I been on since I've been down there?
I think so now.
I'll tell you what. That was one of the most awesome shows that I have seen in a long time. At first, I wasn't going to go, and my son was meeting his buddies from Niles. He flew up from Florida, and I was thinking, well, I'll come down and have a couple beers with you guys. I'll go to the show. Then I thought, I ain't going to go. And then I got to thinking about it again. And, you know, Sandra Miller, my partner on Y103, she was talking about it or something. And I looked at the lineup and I said, you know what? I said, this is going to be a national happening. This is Rolling Stone magazine type. This is going to be a huge show. This show is going to mean something. And so I said, you know what? I'm going. I don't care if I got to drive to Columbus. I'm going. I'm not going to miss this show. And so the show was the James Gang reunion. It was, you know, Joe Walsh put it on. So he did the James Gang reunion. And then they had the Breeders from Dayton, and they have a lot of songs. And I'm pretty sure the singer from the Breeders used to be in a band called the Pixies. And then they had, you know, Dave Grohl was there. They're trying to make it like an Ohio-based show, all Ohio. So then Dave Grohl was there. And then the Black Keys were there. And Trent Reznor and 9 Inch Nails. And then Joe and his band wrapped up the evening. Show was 6 hours long. And the Vindies were there. We were hanging. I said, man, we got to get the Vindies on this stage next time he does this. So it was an all Ohio show. And they mentioned Youngstown several times. Of course, they mentioned Warren several times. And so the Breeders come out and they do, you know, their show. And all the bands did full shows. It wasn't like they come up and do two, 3 songs. And then, I mean, they did full sets. So the Breeders come out and they do theirs. And one of their hit songs was written by somebody from Youngstown. I forget the guy's name. And they do a big thing. Hey, this was written by, you know, this guy from Youngstown. And how many people from Youngstown are here? And there was a lot of people from Youngstown there. Sold out. Nationwide Arena, sold out. 6-hour show. So they come up first. And then Dave Grohl jumps up and does a song with them. Then they do the Joe Walsh did the James Gang reunion second. So, you know, they come out and they do Funk 49 and Walk Away and all those great James Gang songs. So that went really good. So they do their whole set, and Dave Grohl jumped in with them, did a couple songs. Dave just floated in and out and jumped in with some of the bands. Then the Black Keys come up, and they're from Akron, and they did their set. They're like one of them underrated bands, and they did all their songs, Gold on the Ceiling and Lonely Boy and all that stuff, and they just blew the place away. And I think Dave did a song with them. So then they do their whole set, and then 9 Inch Nails come up, and Trent Reznor, man, they just blew that place away. It's amazing with 9 Inch Nails, the power and how that band has so much drive. It's just like boom, 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 boom. It doesn't stop, man. It's just like they're in your face. They don't let you up. They just pound on you. And of course, they did Hurt, Whole Like a Head, and all those songs. And Trent Reznor, now he was there, even though Trent is originally from Mercer, and he graduated from Mercer High School, and then he played in some bands around Youngstown. A lot of people don't realize that. Back in before he moved to Cleveland, I think he played in the Urge, if I'm not mistaken. They used to play out at RJ's, and Trent used to be like Youngstown, Western Pennsylvania dude, and he bought his first synthesizer down at New York Music, the Moog, however you say it. When they had the anniversary of that, they had a clip of him talking about how he bought his first synthesizer at New York Music, which used to be right down the street from where we're at right now. And he talks about that. Trent Reznor's kind of amazing because, you see a picture of him in his high school yearbook, and you see him in the marching band, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's like this crazy off the charts rocker that lived in the Charles Manson murder house and recorded one of his albums there and lived in that house. And finally, I guess one of the victims confronted him and says, hey, you think this is funny or something? Or, you think this is a show or a prop or something? No, hey, our family got killed in there, and you're doing this. And I guess he had a change of heart, if I remember the story correctly. I could be wrong, but then I think he had a change of heart. Like, he's like, yeah, what am I doing in here? But he still has the door from that house, like on the door of his recording studio or something, which is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
So anyways, here's this guy from Mercer, Pennsylvania, and he winds up like this, and I remember seeing him one time in Erie, and he goes, everybody asked me, they go, where does all this anger and where does all this angst in your music come from? And he goes, it comes from growing up in Western Pennsylvania. And everybody goes nuts. And then he jumped into some song or something. As a matter of fact, I think one of the last times I was in like kind of a fist fight was Bad 18. Listen to this. Listen to Harry George. He's checking in. Yeah, he's talking smack. But anyways, so Trent Reznor. Yeah, I mean, there was this dude there, and I forget what my problem was, but I had to sit down for a little bit. I was tired. Hey, resting my tired old bones there, Georgie. I had my back was hurting or something. I sat down for a minute, and this dude pushes me, goes, "You get on your feet for Trent Reznor, you MFer, and all this stuff." Like, what the hell are you talking about? And, so the next thing you know, it comes a few blows and it gets broken up or whatever. But it was like, dude, what are you doing, man? So that was my Trent Reznor. But and then he went to Cleveland. He played in some bands in Cleveland, and that's where 9 Inch Nails was formed. And that's where so Trent does his set, and so now you think it's about over. Like, okay, yeah, we did we did the Breeders, we did the James Gang reunion, we did Black Keys, we did 9 Inch Nails, Dave Grohl come out and played with everybody. And then, now it's almost like it's 11 o'clock. This is 5 hours in. So you're thinking, oh, okay, thank you. Good night, everybody. Next thing you know, Joe comes back out, and Joe did Turn to Stone, In the City, Rocky Mountain Way, Life's Been Good, a couple other songs, and Dave played with them. The show went 6 hours long. And it was just
That's
so
crazy.
fantastic. And and then the Ohio State Marching Band opened the show. So they come out and they did the national anthem and they did Hang On Sloopy and everybody
Oh, I
went
bet you
nuts.
crazy.
You know, it was just crazy. And you know, the only thing that made me think of that is because, you know, you'd mentioned the Vindies and we were hanging out with those guys down there for a while. And Jeff Burke from the Record Connection was there. And there was just a ton of people from Youngstown, Eddie Kunzer. And, you know, I mean, just a lot of the, you know, the concert hounds, you know, the music aficionados that go to everything. And I'll tell you what, man, it was an unforgettable show. And I was so glad that I went. Probably one of the better shows. Well, I saw a lot of good shows this summer. What did I see? Skinnerd, you know, even though I don't think there's anybody left in the band, they still blew the roof off the Covelli Center. Everybody loved it. Nobody was sitting there saying, I don't think there was one original guy in there, you know, but there wasn't, but it was still that good, you know? So that's another question and a debate that people have about some of these rock bands. Well, how about Christine McVie from Fleetwood Mac?
I saw that.
That was sad, you know, and she was so underrated. You know, people don't realize the part that she played in that band, and she was a songwriter, a singer, keyboard player. You know, she was just always in the shadow of Stevie Nicks. You know, everybody focused on Stevie Nicks, but she was just as big a part of that band as Stevie was. You know, especially for writing songs and for singing, and all of a sudden you know, she passes away and then you rediscover her and you rediscover the songs that she did and you see videos and, you know, and then you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. You know, and you forget how big of a part of the band that she was. Right. But that bums me out too, is that, you know, all our heroes are getting old, you know.
Sure.
I mean, you know, we're going to continue to see that, you know, and I didn't realize she was 79 years old. You know, I didn't. You know, and you're thinking, oh, how many of these people are that age? You know, you know, and no matter what, you know, it just shows you though the timelessness of classic rock. The music was so good that when I think of Fleetwood Mac, I'm still focused in on 1975. You know, I'm focused in on 1975 and what they looked like back then and everything. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, wow, they're 80. You know, I'm celebrating a big birthday here myself, you know, and you're sitting there thinking, ooh, boy.
Did you mention what age you just celebrated?
No, you don't need to know. You don't need to know. You can guess. Take a guess.
No,
you know,
I'm not going to do that.
You know, yeah, take a guess. But look, I mean, you know, you could probably get some sort of an idea of where we are with that. But yeah, you know, it was, you know, you look at these guys and boy, you start thinking, you know, look how old the Stones are. They're that age, you know, and Aerosmith and all these guys, you know. And you know, I think the thing with me and my brain that always gets to me is my old man died when he was 70. And for some reason in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, I got until I'm 70, and, you know, and that's it, you know. And I see these people that are, you know, out there and, you know, Bruce Springsteen or these guys or Aerosmith or Kiss. And these guys are 70 years old. That's how old they were when my dad died, you know? And you just start sitting there thinking, you know, so I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, that was sad with Christine McVie. And you know what? She, in a way, she was kind of like, you know, a little bit like Tom Petty. You know, when Tom Petty passed away, you didn't realize the amount of people that Tom Petty touched until he passed away. Then it was mind blowing. You know, when to right now, it's like, you know, it was like, you know, when he passed away, and the outpouring of, you know, grief or whatever you want to call it, it made you sit there and go, wow, he really did touch more people than you thought in a big way. You know, I mean, you know, you really felt it that when, you know, it was a loss to a lot of people, and he was only 66, you know, and he was just such a great guy. And his guitar player, Mike Campbell, his partner in crime, co-writer and everything. He's got a band out there called the Dirty Knobs. And if you want to see a good band, he sounds a lot like Tom. And, he wrote all the guitar stuff. He's such a talented person. And his band's called the Dirty Knobs. And they're just fantastic. I mean, if you like that Tom Petty sound, because he's one of the guys that's the architect of that,
Right.
And he's just a laid back, cool dude, and he's just so cool. He's one of my favorites. But, you see this. Okay. Harry George, I got laid regularly with Fleetwood Mac music in the background. See, he does have that romantic side. What was it? Warm Ways. There's that's one, if you want that romantic song that people forget about, that Christine McVie wrote, is Warm Ways. Listen to that one. It's just like, it's just, Oh Daddy is another one, but she was just such a phenomenal talent and underrated. And now that she passed away, people are realizing what she brought to the table. And you're also realizing how many people were aware of her. And and what's kind of crazy about her is, with all this craziness that everybody knows about with Fleetwood Mac that was going on with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham, and, even her and her husband, John McVie, who is, in the band, all this craziness that was going on. She was just like this calm, normal person in the middle of this big storm, this big hurricane going on, Right. And I thought that was the same way as Charlie Watts from the Rolling Stones. He was kind of that same way, Mick and Keith, and they got this craziness going on, and, but you had, and they're marrying these women and all these young girls and stuff. And then you had Charlie Watts, who was like so grounded and so, what do you call it? So prim and proper. He was a Rolling Stone, but he was like, and he was just like, married to the same woman the whole time and everything. And he was just like this
contrast.
Yeah, this contrast to the whole thing that was going on. You had all the stuff with Mick and Keith and everything, but yet you still had this guy keeping that steady beat the whole time with that straight face, that poker face. And so it was a lot of fun. Okay, Jaybird, food for thought from Jaybird. We always know how much money we have, but we never know how much time we have. Ain't that the truth? Amen. Ain't that the truth? And you really, you don't want to think about it, but sometimes you have to think about it. So, okay. My sister Lee says, happy birthday to my older brother. I'm out, kids. See you tomorrow. Be good. Santa is coming. Yeah, we'll be down there. You want to wrap this up? I think sure. But once I get on a roll here, I don't know if, people listen to this rambling or whatever. I don't even know why I come down here and just ramble on about this kind of stuff. But
we love your stories. That's why you do it. We love it.
Oh, okay. Well, I figured there had to be something to it. But I really got to get back to getting some guests on. And our old friend Father Jimmy is planning on coming back. We'll get JT and Father Jimmy. For those of you that aren't familiar with Father Jimmy is like the rock and roll priest. And he was a DJ back in the 60s. And he knows so many people. We have had such great shows. If you want to go back in the archives and see some of the people that we have interviewed through Father Jimmy, I'll tell you what, remember when he had the woman on from the Dixie Cups, right?
I remember that, yes.
And they were talking about that song, Hey Now, Giacomo Fino.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
Giacomo Fino all day long. Hey now. And so, and we had the woman that wrote it on there. I can't think of her name right now, but I'm just having a brain fart. And, he knew these 60s people that toured with James Brown, and we were interviewing all these people that had these hits back in the 60s. And I can't wait to get him on again because he's kind of goofy, right? And then we get our buddy JT, who's kind of an aficionado of this kind of stuff, and it'll 60s, and we always have a great time. But so I was listening to Little Steven's Underground Garage on Sirius XM, and they played that Giacomo Fino, and they start telling the Dixie Cups. That's it. And they start telling the story about the Dixie Cups, of how they wrote this song and how they got sued and all this stuff. And I was sitting there and going, damn, we had the singer on telling that exact story.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, we did pretty good on that. But
Yeah.
they went through the whole story and they explained it and everything. And I was like, yeah, we had her on here, and she
That's cool stuff.
she explained the whole thing. So plus I got there's 2 shows coming up to the Robbins Theater in January that I think that we're going to have a chance to interview some interesting people. They got the one show, it's Pure Prairie League and the Atlanta Rhythm Section and Firefall. And some people from the 70s will know those bands. And I can't wait to get them on, because and then they're doing a 60s show, and I saw one of the bands on there was the Buckinghams, and Father Jimmy's friends with the Buckinghams. So we'll see if we could get those guys on before that happens. So anyways, that's what's going on, man. Thanks everybody for sitting here listening to us babble. I have nothing better than no. Actually, I got a ton of shit to do, and I'm down here drinking beer, babbling on this. And then they'll look at me. Why didn't you get your work done? I was on the podcast. Well, you know what? Well,
But it's your birthday. You're allowed.
It's my birthday.
That's it.
It's my birthday. So, anyways, thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll catch you tomorrow, 3:00 Y103. I'll see you down at the parade in Youngstown. Don't forget about the Santa Shuffle in downtown Youngstown, starting at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. That's always a great time. And I will be out at the Lake Milton American Legion. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Legion. And you know where it's at. It's just right off of 18. I'll be out there on Sunday for the Toys for Tots benefit. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there that need some help this holiday season. So whether you're helping out a food bank, the Family Mission in Warren, the Rescue Mission in Youngstown, Toys for Tots, Salvation Army, the different food banks or whatever, get out there and do something nice for some people for the holidays. So that's all I got. Joe, thanks. Always fun talking to you. Always fun hanging out. And hopefully next week we'll get a guest. You know what? I promise I get a guest next week. So peace out.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content.